Grover gulped. He put his hand on Linnaeus' forehead and spoke an ancient blessing. The old satyr's body melted, until all that was left was a tiny sapling in a pile of fresh soil. "A laurel," Grover said in awe. "Oh, that lucky old goat." He gathered up the sapling in his hands. I should plant him in Olympus, in the gardens." "We're going that way," I said. "Come on." Easy listening music played as the elevator rose. I thought about the first time I'd visited Mount Olympus, back when I was 12. Annabeth and Grover hadn't been with me then. I was glad they were with me now. I had a feeling it might be our last adventure together. "Percy," Annabeth said quietly, "you were right about Luke." It was the first time she'd spoken since Selena Beauregard's death. She kept her eyes fixed on the elevator floors as they blinked into the magical numbers. 400, 450, 500. Grover and I exchanged glances. "Annabeth," I said, "I'm sorry." "You tried to tell me." Her voice was shaky. "Luke is no good. I didn't believe you until I heard how he'd used Selena. Now I know. I hope you're happy." "That doesn't make me happy." She put her hand against the elevator wall and wouldn't look at me. Grover cradled the laurel sapling in his hands. "Well, sure good to be together again. Arguing, almost dying, abject terror. Oh look, it's our floor." The doors dinged and we stepped out into the aerial walkway. Depressing is not a word that usually describes Mount Olympus, but it looked that way now. No fires lit the braziers. The windows were dark. The streets were deserted and doors were barred. The only movement was in the parks, which had been set up as field hospitals. Will Solis and the other Apollo campers scrambled around, caring for the wounded. Naiads and dryads tried to keep using nature magic songs to heal burns and poison. As Grover planted the laurel sapling, Annabeth and I went around trying to cheer up the wounded. I passed a satyr with a broken leg, a demigod who was bandaged from head to toe, and a body covered in a golden burial shroud of Apollo's cabin. I didn't know who was underneath. I didn't want to find out. My heart felt like lead, but we tried to find positive things to say. "You'll be up and fighting titans in no time," I told one camper. "You look great," Annabeth told another camper. "Lenny has turned into a shrub," Grover told a groaning satyr. I found Dionysus' son Pollux popped up against a tree. He had a broken arm, but otherwise he was okay. "I can still fight with the other hand," he said, gritting his teeth. "No," I said, "you've done enough. I want you to stay here and help the wounded." "But—" "Promise me you'll stay safe," I said. "Okay? Personal favor." He frowned uncertainly. It wasn't like we were good friends or anything, but I wasn't going to tell him it was a request from his dad. That would just embarrass him. Finally, he promised, and when he sat back down, I could tell he was kind of relieved. Annabeth, Grover, and I kept walking towards the palace. That's where Kronos would head. And as soon as he made it up the elevator, I had no doubt he would, one way or another. He would destroy the throne room, the center of the god's power. The bronze doors creaked open. Our footsteps echoed on the marble floor. The constellations twinkled coldly on the ceiling of the great hall. The hearth was down to a dull red glow. Hestia, in the form of a little girl in brown robes, hunched at its edge, shivering. The Orphean Taurus swam sadly in its spear of water. He let out a half-hearted moo when he saw me. In the firelight, the thrones cast evil-looking shadows like grasping hands. Standing at the foot of Zeus's throne, looking up at the stars, was Rachel Elizabeth Dare. She was holding a Greek ceramic vase. "Rachel," I said, what are you doing with that?" She focused on me as if she were coming out of a dream. "I found it. It's Pandora's jar, isn't it?" Her eyes were brighter than usual, and I had a bad flashback of moldy sandwiches and burned cookies. "Please put the jar down," I said. "I can see hope inside it." Rachel ran her fingers over the ceramic designs. "So fragile." "Rachel!" My voice seemed to be bringing her back to reality. She held out the jar and I took it. The clay felt as cold as ice. "Grover," Annabeth mumbled, "let's scout around the palace. Maybe we can find some extra Greek fire or Hephaestus traps." "But—" Annabeth elbowed him. "Right," he yelped. "I love traps." She dragged him out of the throne room. Over by the fire, Hestia was huddled in her robes, rocking back and forth. "Come on," I told Rachel. "I want you to meet someone.